In continuing where we left off, the question is, does our seemingly endless pursuit of our so-called valuables and our vices have the same bonding effect as that of our former oppressors? This section will focus on our vices, and I would like to use the interplay of men and women as the primary example. Why? This is due to the fact that we have now objectified each other as men and women, and as a result are marginalizing our family units. If Dr. King were here and he saw the nature of our male and female relationships, he would literally vomit. Though the image may invoke a slight bit of laughter, the situation is far from funny. No specific gender is the specific cause of this chaos. However, both play a major part and is continuous, so both need to play a part in its desistance. Essentially, we are playing with our lives and the lives of our children and children's children who socialize with these dysfunctional offspring and then bring such behaviors and attitudes into the living homes of stable households. This problem is highly contagious. Let's start with the objectified male. As a black man, I've been the source of criticism for several generations. We have been called this and that and the other thing, and for a while, it was primarily by our own women. The objectification of the black man by our sisters comes in the following colors: money, sex, security, and a false sense of esteem or womanhood that just having a man provides. But when you don't understand, again, your higher nature and your lower nature, then you are in pursuit of these things for the wrong reason. So let's start with money and security. Men have been the historical providers and protectors for women since the beginning of time. Women play a vital role in the household, as do men. As we move from the 50s and 60s to the new millennium and on, we could notice a downward stability in the home universally. The nuclear family, i.e. the man, woman, and child, evolved into the all too common single family. This is not just for African Americans. This is actually the totality of American culture, and it's degenerated into this lonely life situation. As a result, women have replaced men in certain aspects, as they are the one who now actually runs the household and the one with custody of the children. This has created the objectification of men because out of the isolated circumstances, women have allowed either the wrong men into their fraction homes and lives. Some bring money, some offer off and on security, and some are just used to fill a void in their lives because they're, basically lonely and borderline just depressed black women. In each case, the true essence of manhood is allowed to be divided and consumed by the female on a piecemeal basis. I've seen several examples where these lonely women value these no good men more than their own children, and as a result put more time and resources into the man than the children. Though it was just a movie, Tyler Perry's Medea's Family Reunion, in which Lynn Whitfield compromised the innocence of her own daughter to save her marriage, gives a hard example of the desperation that exists among this particular relationship dynamic, and is harshly too true to life. In any such case, love, direction, and guidance are not qualities that women seek in their relationships with men. Another good example from Tyler Perry's movie is Jill Scott's role in Why Did I Get Married? This is the classic case of a woman whose low self-esteem allowed her to be victimized by someone who would openly mistreat her. Though the development of the relationship was never displayed, it mirrored the type of pseudo-relationship that you find imperfect and sometimes less attractive women, fighting just to say that they can have a man to avoid being loneliness. The guilt, again, lies in the desire and the push for something outside of yourself that can be achieved through confidence and identification with your higher self. Okay? So let's move on to the next subject, sex. No subject listed above exemplifies the dominance of the lower nature over the higher nature more so than sex, especially if she's the instigator. Sex is like alcohol. I love it, you love it, we all love it, but it kills people and causes problems every single day. Promiscuity and sexual freedom among women has devalued and helped objectify men in this modern era. Though men are still far from guilty from doing this, or I should say, men are still far more guilty of doing this to women, Female infidelity is a sign of a lack of self-control among the gender that is historically more trustworthy and more reserved in this particular department than men. The unquenchable thirst or desire takes many forms, and there are plenty of women who, like men, are addicted to sex. They use it to fulfill a bottomless well that can only be truly satisfied by the knowledge of self and application of wisdom. But being a slave can neither benefit the oppressed, but it can even worsen when you are your own master. So I'll say that again. Being a slave can never benefit the oppressed, but it's even worse when you are your own slave master. It has been said that only the slave can emancipate himself from slavery. If the slave master is yourself, our brethren, then it is up to the community as a whole to begin a dialogue to try and correct these mannerisms. Dr. King would be utterly ashamed that we have wasted a healthy portion of our precious time in pursuit of such vices. What would he do? I'm not exactly sure. However, I am sure that, like in the previous question, he would mention that the answer lies within ourselves, as long as we don't lie to ourselves. At this point, I would like to close this passage with a quote from the noble Drew Ali, who wrote, and this is in the Circle 7 Quran, "Beware, young man, beware of all the allurements of wantonness, and let not the harlot tempt thee to excess in your delights. The madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits." I'll say that again. The madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits. From the blindness of its raids thou shalt rush upon destruction. Therefore, give not up thy heart to her sweet enticements. Neither suffer thy soul to be enslaved by her enchanting delusions. The fountain of health, which must supply the stream of pleasure, shall quickly be dried up, and every spring of joy shall be exhausted. In the prime of thy life, old age shall overtake thee. The sun shall decline in the morning of thy days. But when virtue and modesty enlighten her charms, the luster of a beautiful woman is brighter than the stars of heaven, and the influence of her power it is in vain to resist. The whiteness of her bosom transcendeth the lily. Her smile is more delicious than a garden of roses. The innocence of her eyes is like that of the turtle. Simplicity and truth dwell in her heart. The kisses of her mouth are sweeter than honey. The perfumes of Arabia breathe from her lips. Shut not thy bosom to the tenderness of love. The purity of its flame shall ennoble thy heart, and often it is to receive the fairest impressions. So in essence, what we're basically trying to get across here is that we sort of engage in relationships for the wrong reasons. Sometimes it's to, just fill a void that we have, basically because, again, we're not identifying with our higher nature. So to simply put it, one way that we can begin to resolve this problem is to identify the roles of masculine energy and the roles of feminine energy, and understand how the two interact. Also, understand the role of the higher self and act out of your higher mind and not out of your lower nature. Okay? So basically that's what we want to get across in this section.